takes off like a rocket. I mean, running as hard as he can go. There was a big fence not too far from us, and he leaps over this fence just like a deer. I mean, it was like, okay, wait a minute. Who is this guy? It turns out, I didn't know this, but he was a mixed martial arts fighter and very good. He could have killed me in a second. I mean, he was extremely talented fighter.
Welcome, everyone, to the Road Less Traveled podcast. This podcast is all about people who were very successful in their first or earlier careers and chose to take a different path. I'm your co-host, Richard Coyne.
And I'm your co-host, Bill Zahller. Today, we're joined by Whitney Sewell. Thank you, Whitney, for being on the show. We appreciate it. Can you tell us a little bit about your former career and how you transitioned from what you were doing and into the syndication world you're in now?
Of course. I'm happy to be here, guys. Pleasure to catch up with you all again. So I had military, was in the military, spent a year in Iraq, all of 2005, and came home trying to figure out what I was going to do as a career. Had no idea. I was not raised around entrepreneurs or other people that were in real estate, or it really just no mindset of investing whatsoever. No one in my family really had any kind of wealth that they could invest like that. And so, coming home from overseas, I'd always wanted to be a police officer, and that was just it was an easy transition, right? I love the uniform, the discipline. And so I got hired out of like 1,200 applicants. There were 5 positions, and I was blessed to have one of them with Kentucky State Police. And the first couple of years, I would have done it for free. I loved working the road, but, soon got married and found out very quickly that it just wasn't what was best long-term. Our first whole year of marriage, we just passed each other in the hallway, and, horrible schedule, as you can imagine, working every night, weekend, and holiday, and every kind of overtime I could possibly work. Just even then, it was even working all the overtime. It was hard to break 35 to 40,000 on the best year. And so quickly I could see, okay, this is not what's best. I've got to figure out some other way to supplement this income. And at that time, I was just thinking about how else could I bring in some money. And after doing a little research, real estate seemed like an obvious way because, so it wasn't like one or two people had built wealth in real estate. It was many, I mean, hundreds and hundreds of thousands of people, right? Who had built wealth in real estate. So, and so we transitioned quickly to, focusing on learning. And this was in 2009, bought a couple triplexes, made a ton of mistakes. And we self-managed, learned a lot the hard way, but thankfully we didn't quit there. But then I became a federal agent, and that moved us to Virginia, where we live now. So it was an incredible transition. I mean, it's most law enforcement's dream to go federal, better pay, better benefits, better schedule, all those things that they only dream of being in that type of career. And so it was a great position. It was a great job. However, it was still a job. I was still answering, to the man, and that was a struggle. So I quickly hit that limit again. I was still dabbling in real estate just a little bit, but I quickly hit the top of the scale again within just a few years, and there was nowhere else to go. So I kept pushing in real estate, and then a few years later learned about the syndication business, which obviously transitioned into full time. But happy to answer any questions about any of that.
Awesome. Yeah. So Whitney, along your travel, from military to state police officer to federal agent, obviously you were in that kind of career field for a while. Do you have maybe a funny story you can share, or something that kind of made you question, why am I doing this?
There's plenty of those, Richard, plenty of stories as a police officer. You think, what am I doing? So there, I was thinking about that. There's this story. I was on my way home. I was on, and if I can paint a picture for you just a little bit, a 2-lane road out in the middle of nowhere. I'm traveling. I'm fixing to be done for the night, and it's probably 1:30 or 2 in the morning, and going down this little 2-lane road. There's this car parked in the middle of the road. Or not in the middle, they were on their side, but I'm like, well, what's this car doing just sitting there? So I stopped, say, what's going on? A guy stands up on the other side, and he says, oh, I'm just using the bathroom. And I'm like, in the middle of the road? What are you doing? And so sure enough, I said, pull in this driveway right here. And so he pulls in. There was 2 people in the back. I mean, you just never know, as a police officer, what you're getting into ever, right? But they pull in. I get the guy out. He gives me a bogus name, all this information, and I'm trying to, talk to dispatch, and they're like, no, we don't have, nobody comes back with that name. I get him back out, and I'm saying, I need your real name. I know this is not your real name. And he takes off like a rocket. I mean, running as hard as he can go. There was a big fence not too far from us, and I'm running after him. You can imagine your adrenaline pumping, right? Somebody running from you. And so he is running, and I'm running after him. I'm yelling at dispatch saying, he's running. Of course, other officers are trying to come while trying not to laugh at the same time, right? But this guy is running, and he leaps over this fence just like a deer. I mean, it was like, okay, wait a minute. Who is this guy, right? Who am I dealing with, right? So I get back in my car. I run back to my car. I'd already run a good piece, but then it hit me. Obviously, I can't leave my car unsecure that long with those people sitting there. So I go back, get my car, and I'm going down this road to find another little drive and pull out in this field. And I'm shining my light, and I see him laying down out in the field. And so, long story short, I just bluff him because we were, a one-man officer. When you're state police, you're out by yourself all the time. And so, it could be 10 or 15 minutes at least before anybody could get there. But I said, people, a lot of other officers are on the way. You might as well turn yourself in. Sure enough, he comes up to the fence, get my taser out, and I tell him to get over the fence. And I say, get on the ground. He gets on the ground, and then he jumps back up, and I tase him. And I will never forget that. It turns out, I didn't know this, but he was a mixed martial arts fighter and very good. And so that was one time I was so thankful for the taser. He could have killed me in a second. He was extremely talented fighter. And so, but numerous warrants, but just the adrenaline pumping, and it was craziness, all it just in a few minutes. Amazing how fast things can happen. But it's a great reminder to me why I'm thankful that there's guys and gals who are willing to risk everything to help protect us. But I'm thankful that I don't have to do that anymore personally.
Wow.
That's amazing.
Yeah, I guess, do you still find yourself in life and death situations with your apartments now? Wow.
Not hardly. No, that's over.
That's amazing.
Once you watched him leap that fence, you wonder if you wanted to catch him.
Exactly. I know. That's exactly right.
Huh. Yeah. Well, excellent. Well, Whitney, maybe you can tell us like a deciding factor that helped you lead to your thought process in changing directions. That probably had something to do with it, but just like you said, the pass in the hall, the schedule, everything else. But was there one particular thing, or just an accumulation of events that decided to make a pivot?
It was an accumulation of things, but as a police officer, there were guys retiring that were barely making $40,000 a year, and they'd been there 20, 25 years or more. Mm-hmm. And so I could quickly see, I didn't see that when I first got hired, right? I just saw this great job, right? I was raised to think, you get some education or you get a great job with a retirement, like a 20-year retirement, right? But they don't retire with hardly anything. Just so, it seems great to retire in 20 years, but what do they have? Not much, not much. And so seeing that start to happen and also working with numerous guys that were obviously struggling with numerous marriages and different things like that. Just family life is so difficult for anyone, but much less, for guys that never get to see their family. And so it was numerous things like that, but just knowing too that there's no way to make any more money hardly. There's no way for me to provide better for my family. Like I said, we wanted my wife to be able to stay at home when we had children, and it was going to be extremely difficult to make that happen, on that income. And that was a big turning point. It's like, okay, we have to do something else. Obviously federal agent position came, and that was a big blessing at the time, but still I hit a ceiling very fast. And I knew that I could I just knew that I could do a lot better in real estate at that point. If I was completely committed.
Gotcha.
Absolutely.
So Whitney, as you were starting to really move in that direction of making the change to take a new path, were there some obstacles that you hit along the way?
Oh boy, is this a 5-hour show? Is that right?
Yeah, I'll tell you all the time you need.
Right away, it's I think when, and I'll back up just a little bit. Most people don't know this, but I was a professional horse trainer as well. I had another business. I was working full time and training horses professionally and doing clinics in a lot of different states. And training lots of people as well. That was a passion of mine since I was a very young boy. And so it was neat to see that happen and be able to do that at that scale. However, I could see it was never going to be passive as well. I was still working full time as a federal agent, and now I'm in the arena till midnight most nights, working horses, giving lessons, and the weekends as well. And finally, my wife and I were at the beach one fall, and we were just praying about this, and because I knew I couldn't keep this up forever, and so we had the farm we'd like always dreamed of, and I was doing really well in horse training and selling horses for more money than I ever imagined. But we knew it was never going to be passive. I was always going to have to put in those hours. It was always going to have to be me. And still, I wasn't ready to jump into that full time. I could make a lot more money doing that than a federal agent. But still, I mean, what if something happened to me? Then I can't train horses. Then we're out of income, right? And so it just wasn't a smart move. I didn't feel good about that. And so I still had some rentals. And so we completely changed our focus 100%. And it was one of our hardest decisions, but the Lord just gave us peace about it completely. My wife and I, this was like probably August, September. And by December, we had signed up with a mentor in the syndication business and sold our farm. And so we sold everything related to the horse training business. And so that was very difficult for us because it was like completely shutting that door 100%. And I knew it would take that. And I needed to do that so I could be completely committed to the syndication business 100%. We were starting our third adoption process then too. And so even signing up with that mentor then, I think it was like $12,000 then. But at that time, we're fixing to do our third adoption process, which we knew was going to cost $40,000 to $60,000. And we were like, should we do this? Is this, is this a wise move to spend this kind of money doing this? I was committed to starting this business. However, I didn't know about that mentorship at the time, but very thankful we did that. But one of the hardest decisions was selling that farm because we had just dreamed about being there. But I knew long-term, my wife knew long-term that was the best decision we could make at that time. So I could just completely focus on our real estate business.
Yeah, definitely all in. So on that path, once you and your wife committed and, had the resolve and I guess just the comfort of that's the right path to go down. What was one of your first victories once you got started down that path that really sticks out in your mind as realizing you've made the right choice?
I think it took a while before there was like a victory. I was very committed. Obviously, I was going to say getting the podcast started. That was a victory. However, that was the beginning of a lot of work, to say the least. Just so much time spent, But the very first victory was being able to partner on our first deal, and then obviously the second, and then probably the biggest victory was meeting my business partner. And he had skill sets that were extremely complementary to mine and vice versa. And that is really, I'd been building this engine over here while he had been working on these things over here. And we needed all those pieces, right? We neither had the other. And so that's probably the biggest victory is just the Lord allowing us to meet. And now, we've been able to do more than we ever imagined.
Oh, that's awesome. Great. Yeah, finding the right partner makes all the difference. Like you said, you can, and you'll work harder not to let other people down than necessarily yourself. That extra motivation, I think, is key. Yeah, that's great, Whitney.
Richard, I know you're still looking for a partner, right?
I know. Yeah, this guy over here on my right, your left, or whatever side that is. Yeah, Whitney. So, now that you're in this new world and it's doing great, is there a funny story that you can share around the new world, your new path?
I don't know how funny, but I tell you one thing seems strange probably, but like leaving even the federal position and now doing real estate full time, it's hard to transition, right? People think, oh, that'd be easy if I could do real estate full time, but I tell you, it's so easy for me to still just fill my calendar up with nearly 2 full-time jobs. And just being willing, but I tell you what, it's been hard to say, okay, I'm cutting this off, putting time blocks on my schedule every day. So things, so I can just stick to a normal life or, and still be that father and husband that I want to be. And so that's been a big change for us. Like I said, it's not funny, but that was a big change. You would think that would be easy, but that's been difficult.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Certainly understand. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Whitney, where are you now on your journey? I mean, you've gone from federal officer, horse training, sold the farm, into syndication, and you've scaled that quickly. Can you just get a little idea of where you are on your journey and what your goals are going forward?
Yeah. So, we personally have about 150 million in assets right now, 899 doors. And so we're extremely grateful, for the deals we've been able to do over this past year. And we raised, over 20 million, just within our own business, and about 35 million total, last year raised. And we did, like I said, 4 deals last year. We closed a large project a week before the country was shut down in March. And so we really thought then, well, I don't know if we'll get to do another deal or not this year. And thankfully we did 3 more, one 2 days before Christmas and another like 3 or 4 days after. And then, so we hope to do, another 4 deals this year. We'd love to do 6, but we just, patience has paid off. 2 of those deals last year, we walked away from, and the broker came back and we got a $3 million discount on 2 different projects, because we were willing to be patient, and walk away. So we still want to do that, right? And be willing to walk away from deals when they don't meet just some things that we know they need to right off the bat. But that's a little bit about where we're at. And actually, I'll share, since I shared the farm story, we've moved back out to a farm now. And so we hope to get another horse or 2 in the very near future.
Oh, nice. Oh, nice.
Excellent.
Yeah. The sort of the follow on to that, and you touched on it briefly, is just, kind of where does your road go from here? I mean, obviously family is really important to you. Clearly, you now have the farm, a new farm again, like you said, and obviously you're continuing the syndication. Kind of where do you see that going?
Yeah, we're continuing to grow. Our team has grown a lot. We've hired people. We hope to hire 1 to 2 more people in the next probably 3 to 6 months. And so team's growing. We hope to move into another market this year, maybe even another asset class. I'm not 100% sure on that, obviously, just yet. We're learning, but just want to create obviously more ways for more deal flow as well. And as everybody knows in real estate right now, it's hard to find a property that makes sense, or there's so much competition. But that's anyway, that's a little about the business. I mean, personally and professionally, we started a nonprofit as well, last year, and that my wife and I commit half of our profits to. Then a lot of other people donated quite a bit last year as well, and we're very excited. I mean, that was our whole mission, our whole why behind Life Bridge Capital, is to help families through the expense of adopting their children. And so we're just fixing to, like, within the next probably month to 2 months, we'll be able to start giving to our first, like the first families that we'll be able to help. And
Wow.
we're looking, just really looking forward to that. It's very exciting for us to actually see that come full cycle now, that we can actually start giving in a really big way.
Oh, that's great, Whitney. Well, what is something else you've recently implemented in your business that has helped you achieve your goals?
Well, okay, there you go. I've had numerous virtual assistants, and I've hired tons of VAs for different things. I tell you one thing I implemented recently that helped me to hire a just top-notch virtual assistant, and that is going through Top Grading. This is a massive book, but I would encourage anybody to have it on their shelf. And it's on Audible as well. And we probably went through, I don't know, I probably used a half of this book, or maybe, 2/3. I didn't use every part of it when we just hired, but it did help me to narrow down the selection and think through how to hire somebody, and even conducting really good interviews. I mean, we did interviews that lasted about 2 to 3 hours. The book tells you that expect at least 4-hour interviews. And
Wow.
we got through probably a half or 2/3 of the questions at like 2 to 3 hours in. And finally, we just kind of had to end a lot of the interviews. And so you're learning so much more about someone, though, by going through that. So we started, I put a job, out on Indeed and through our personal network. And I mean, I guess we had, I don't know how many hundreds, many hundreds of applicants. And then, but we was able, by using this system, to quickly narrow that down. I mean, letting them narrow themselves down by just asking them to do some specific things, right? And how they respond, and who responds, and what they give you, and things like that. So that was crucial in hiring another full-time assistant now, who's just doing an amazing job, to, allowing me to have so much more time now to work on higher paying tasks, right? And while she's helping me in such a big way to do many other things that I would normally have to be getting done.
Wow, that's great insight. And I tell you what, we're going to check that out. We're in the hiring process ourselves right now, and we certainly, I personally have, through other positions, I'm used to hiring people. I'm used to interviewing. I've been doing that almost my entire career, hiring and interviewing and whatnot. But a good reminder like that sounds like it was worth its weight in gold. So, we'll check that book out. Thanks, appreciate the recommendation. Yeah. So Whitney, is there any advice that you might be willing to share with somebody who's on a current career path or in a current career and is looking to make a change to a different path?
Pray about it.
Pray.
Consult your spouse. That's my first couple of recommendations. I have to ask you to think about your motivation. Like why are you, wanting to do it? There's so many things that you have to consider there, right? Especially if you have family, kids, involved. There's many things. Where do you live? And what are you trying to go into? Are you trying to be an entrepreneur? And what is your business that you're trying to move into? Can you become an expert? One big thing, people talk about too, I know about the way we did it was, starting the syndication show before we ever did a syndication. And so I just encourage you that you do have to step out there. You can't wait till you think you're ready. You do have to take action, as you guys know. If you wait till you're ready, you're just never going to do it. And so you do have to step out and do it. So just like doing a daily podcast about syndication business, that was way out of my comfort zone. And probably just a few months before that I didn't even listen to podcasts. I don't know that I even knew what a podcast was, not too many months before. And so you just have to be willing to step out and take a leap. You do have to obviously be educated about it and hopefully you're doing it as strategic as possible, but you do have to be willing to take some risk.
Mm-hmm. That's a great summary right there. And I'll tell you, Bill and I meet a lot of people, and we've run a couple of different groups, and we occasionally will run across people who really want to go in this direction of real estate investing and larger properties, things like that. And again, but some folks just haven't taken that first step yet. And your first step isn't necessarily going to be perfect. You may make some mistakes along the way. You will make some mistakes along the way, but at some point in time, you got to take that action. Otherwise, you're just stuck in analysis paralysis.
Absolutely. Well, Whitney, what's the best way for the listeners to be able to get a hold of you?
LifeBridgeCapital.com. You can email me, Whitney@LifeBridgeCapital.com. You can call or text me 540-585-4338.
Right. And your name of your podcast for the listeners?
The Real Estate Syndication Show.
Excellent podcast. Listened to it for a long time. Can't highly recommend it. Absolutely. Well, we'd like to thank Whitney for being on our podcast today, The Road Less Traveled. We've really enjoyed the discussion, Whitney, and we wish you continued success.
You all as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you,
Absolutely.
Whitney.
We'd also like to thank our audience, and we really appreciate you listening. And we certainly as well would like to thank our sponsors. We couldn't do it without you. Remember, the road less traveled may be calling you. So we highly recommend that you listen and take action. Thanks, Whitney.